Welcome, Freight Masters, and thank you for joining me today. So, I've been talking to a lot of you via email, DMs on Facebook. Some of my colleagues, carriers. I don't know. There's been a ton of phone calls, right? In regards to when will the freight market start to recover. This is something we've talked about a little bit in the past on, sort of what the crystal ball held for everything. And I came across an article on transport topics, which I thought was a fairly good kind of insight on everything. And so I kind of summarized it for everybody so you don't have to go through and read this whole big lengthy article. Obviously you're more than welcome to if you want to, but and while it's primarily focused on brokers, I do think that there's some insight there for carriers as well that can be useful. So that being said, if you don't mind, I appreciate you hitting that subscribe button, that bell notification so that you get notified when I do more of these videos. And as always, I do have down in the description below a list of tools and services, resources for everybody down there. So I guess without any further ado, we'll go ahead and jump into it. Let me just pull up my notes here. So 3PLs navigate a bumpy road, right? But there is a glimmer of recovery and a call for innovation. So the 3PL industry, they call it the backbone of global supply chains, is currently riding out a rough patch. Well, I think that it would be important to note that carriers are riding out a rough patch as well, right? I get kind of where this article was, but I do think that there should have been something included as to the challenges that carriers and truckers are facing in the current market that we've been in, right? And we have been for the last 2 years. So for the past 2 years, an abundance of trucks has driven down freight rates, putting a stranglehold on profit margins for 3PL companies. While the industry grapples with these challenges, a glimmer of hope emerges with forecasts predicting a market rebound sometime in 2024. You're like, Tim, right? You keep saying this sometime in 2024, but when is it actually going to happen? Well, we're getting there, okay? However, the exact timing remains shrouded in uncertainty, leaving 3PLs to strategize and adapt in order to weather the storm. Okay. But again, I think that it's important for carriers to strategize and adapt to survive until things start to recover. Okay. The culprit behind the current woes is an abundance of trucks in the market, fueled by the initial surge in demand following the pandemic's economic recovery, while many new carriers entered the fray. However, as freight volumes failed to keep pace, a situation of oversupply emerged, right? Sort of what we saw after the ELD mandate in 2018 is kind of the most recent one. That's why I kind of revert back to that one. There's other ones as well. I could go back further years, but I think that probably for most of you, there'd be more of you that would remember that, 2018 to 2020, in that time frame, we did see a downturn after 2018. Basically, what were the consequences? There was a race to the bottom for freight rates, squeezing the profitability for 3PL companies. And in the U.S. alone, industry revenue for 3PLs grew at a sluggish 3.2% over the past 5 years, reaching an estimated $258.9 billion in 2023. The final quarter of 2023 proved to be particularly brutal, with the Transportation Intermediaries Association, or the TIA, reporting a 4.7% decline in shipments and a 4.3% decrease in invoice amount per shipment, and an 8.8% drop in total revenue compared to the previous quarter. Now, that brings up a good point, because I recently did a video on broker margins, because I think that there's a huge misconception among many truckers out there that believe that brokers are, primarily making these 30 to 50% margins or even more. That's just not the case. In fact, a recent DAT study found that freight brokers' average gross margin, or the percentage of revenue remaining after paying the carrier, right? That's that difference between what the carrier gets paid versus what the shipper pays, was just under 13.5% in 2023. Broker margins were weakest in the dry van segment at just over 13%. Flatbed loads commanded the highest margins at more than 15.1%, followed by refrigerated at 13.8%. Okay, so these are averages, right? This is primarily what brokers are making per load. Okay, although I guess I could probably be on point with those numbers, kind of looking at my own numbers. Although there's, you've got some of those shippers that really lowball, and there's times, you make nothing, or you make 4 to 5%. That happens. And again, averages. So there are probably some of those brokers, that a few that are making, well over that 13 or 15%, which brings us to that. So is there a light at the end of the tunnel? I'm glad you asked, right? Here are the predictions for recovery. Despite the current struggles, experts are cautiously optimistic about the future. Industry leaders like Kendra Phillips, vice president at Ryder System, predict a steady year, for transportation in 2024, presenting a prime opportunity for 3PLs to prepare for the inevitable rebound, right? It's sort of like the, I don't know if you really want to call it like the calm before the storm, but it's sort of like we're going to start to see steadier freight and numbers kind of before things really sort of swoop up, right? We start to see some better spikes in rates. The transportation data and analytics from DAT, Freight and Analytics, echoes this sentiment, with Chief of Analytics Ken Adamau projecting a market largely pointed toward recovery to mid to late Q2 of 2024. I think that's kind of been DAT's, what their data has been pointing at. I think that probably end of Q2, early to mid Q3 is where I would be. I don't know if that kind of creates a bit of a broader spectrum, but I'm always cautiously optimistic with some of this data that comes out, right? Sometimes they're on point, and other times they're just a little bit ahead of where things tend to be. So that's my personal opinion. Okay. And here's some stats to consider, right? The global 3PL market is still projected to grow at a 8.1% from 2024 to 2030, indicating long-term potential. Okay. More than 35,000 carriers have exited the industry in the past year and a half, suggesting a potential correction in oversupply. Okay. That's obviously it kind of sucks because, I don't believe that technically we're in an oversupply. It's just that freight volumes have not kept pace with capacity, right? And this is something that kind of always tends to happen in a downturn. For any of you that have been in the industry long enough, we always see volumes go down, but capacity stays the same. And so there's always this exit, right, until we find balance. Unfortunately, because it really kind of sucks for my own personal, because I hate to lose carriers that I've got well-established relationships with. And even if I don't utilize them daily, sometimes it just isn't enough to keep them going. I try to fight for higher rates for them, and it's unfortunate when I lose uh, a good carrier or a good trucker, right? Some that I've lost over the years, we still keep in touch regardless. We just kind of got that personal of a relationship going, and we still check in from time to time, and how's the family and that kind of thing. But anyway, I digress. Um, while the market sorts itself out, 3PLs are not sitting idly by. They are actively taking steps to not only survive, but also thrive in the coming upswing. A key strategy involves investing in technology, right? We've been talking about this in a couple of recent videos. By leveraging automation and data analytics tools, 3PLs can streamline operations, improve efficiency, and ultimately reduce costs, right? And we've also talked about the implementing AI with some of that automation, right? Another crucial step is strengthening relationships with carriers, right? Again, something I preach, something I hate losing. I hate losing carriers. And that's one thing that doesn't chap me more. It's losing a good carrier. So those relationships are extremely vital to me personally. Building strong partnerships ensure access to reliable capacity when the market rebounds, right? I've talked about this during, previous downturns in the market. Everybody's like, oh, well, we need to start getting on board with shippers now. Focus on your carrier relationships first. I believe that wholeheartedly. Again, the freight master's humble opinion, but by establishing those relationships ahead of time, while you are also, strengthening your shipper relationships, there's kind of a balance there, right? Ensures that you have that capacity when things do come back around, and it just helps strengthen that happy marriage that I tend to talk about, right? So what are the lessons learned and the pandemic's lasting impact? Because this has all sort of happened as a result of the global pandemic, right? The global pandemic served as a harsh wake up call for the logistics industry, exposing vulnerabilities in supply chains. One of the most critical lessons learned is the importance of supply chain visibility. Real-time data on inventory levels and shipment tracking are no longer luxuries, but necessities by navigating the complexities of modern logistics, right? It's like I said, the industry is always evolving to whatever that is. And while you might have, in your book of business, a couple of shippers that, really wanted that the tracking on their loads, I think that 3PLs will be implementing that more and more and more on their own, especially with a lot of the freight fraud and things going on, which I'm kind of surprised that they failed to mention in this article. But, because that's obviously a contributing factor, but also I'm seeing personally shippers that are requiring tracking more and more. Some of those that hadn't in the past or sporadically did, it's become the new norm for them, right? Like they require this. If I can't, supply them with tracking, then don't bother, kind of a thing. So if you're an agent or a new brokerage out there, make sure that you have tracking available, and you could even present that during part of your sales process, right? The road ahead, looking toward the future, success in the 3PL industry will hinge on three key attributes: agility, collaboration, and sustainability, right? The ability to adapt to market fluctuations and changing customer demands will be paramount, okay? Building strong partnerships with both shippers and carriers will foster a collaborative ecosystem that benefits all parties involved, right? Going back to that happy marriage that brokers are supposed to have with their carriers and their shippers, right? Finally, with a growing focus on environmental responsibilities, 3PLs that prioritize sustainable practices will gain a competitive edge. Okay. Balancing speed and sustainability. Consumer expectations for rapid delivery continue to rise. fueled by e-commerce giants like Amazon. However, this pursuit of speed often comes at the expense of environmental sustainability. Basically, the challenge lies in finding the right balance. Okay, innovative packaging solutions that minimize waste space and optimizing delivery routes can help reduce carbon footprint without sacrificing speed. I'm not really sure why that part of the article was even in there. More of a plug, I think, than anything, at least in my opinion, unless I'm missing something. But in conclusion, the 3PL industry finds itself at a crossroads. While the current market downturn presents significant challenges, a potential recovery looms on the horizon, right? It's just sort of, when is that really going to happen? We're seeing, depending upon who you really want to put your money on, whether it's, the end of this quarter or kind of into the beginning of, or beginning to mid of the third quarter. I kind of combine the both. Again, I don't really have my money on any one particular horse on this, but I do think that we will start to see steadier freight, start to happen, and we should start to see more recovery into 2025, right? Once we get through the next January, February lull that, historically always happens. Do you guys have any comments on this? Anything you think that I boofed on and just completely missed? Your opinions on it. If you think that time frame on when we're going to start to see market recovery is actually going to happen, what are you seeing personally? I'd love to see your comments down below, right? I love reading everybody's comments. Again, if you have a suggestion for a future video, I'll be more than happy to do that for you. We've done a couple of viewer requested videos here recently, so I love that feedback. You guys tell me what you need, right? But I really thought that this was sort of an important topic to kind of cover, again, because I've had a ton of phone calls, messages, emails, and things from people going, Tim, are basically kind of pulling their hair out. And, I know that some of this technology and things that they're saying that we need to invest in can be kind of expensive, right? As carriers often know, your operating costs get more expensive, it seems like. But I do think that for brokers, if you kind of don't invest at least to some extent in some of that technology, you're going to get kind of left behind. That's sort of where we're going to see things go, between now and 2030. So again, don't forget to check out links down below for tools and services that I recommend. Again, whether you need bond, if you need factoring, if you need discount on DAT, if you are a agent or a broker, or even if you're a carrier, again, eCarrier Check, it's a phenomenal resource. I use it daily for sourcing capacity. You carriers, you can source good brokers, finding direct shippers. There's just a wealth of information and resources there for you. It's about all I'm going to say on that. There's so much more. I'll get into a whole hour on eCarrier Check, right? Also, with Operify, that's the factory company that I recommend, whether you're a new broker, a broker that's been in for a while, but you found yourself needing factoring, or if you're a carrier, again, don't forget about their veteran discount over there. Tom, Danny, everybody over there, real industry knowledge. Can't say enough about them. Like, they truly understand the industry. They're just not paper pushers over there. Which, by the way, I should throw out another shout out reminder to Danny's channel, Hauling Cash. So if you haven't checked his channel out yet, absolutely go do that. I mean, he knows his stuff. So, whether it's industry information or if it's anything on factoring, again, really great guy, and tremendous amount of industry knowledge. So don't forget to check out Danny's channel, Hauling Cash. With that, I guess I'll probably sign off for now. Again, I look forward to your comments. And till next time, be kind to one another.